Hey, hockey card fans, welcome back to the channel. I went back to Fan of the Sport in St. Thomas at Elgin Mall and picked up 8 cards, all from the same set. These are from the 1968-69 O-PEECHEE stat year, so these are the 1969 cards. This is the year Montreal had won the Cup when they beat the St. Louis Blues in 4 straight. And these are what I call the postage stamp series. You'll see in a minute, but they have the blue border with a yellow interior. And there's a comic and comments about the player. So you learn more about the player and you get their stats as well. But there's also a spot on some of the cards, on the All-Star ones, where you can, or certain players, where you can put a postage stamp that you get. It's really weird. They've never done that before or since, I don't think. But anyway, let's take a look at what we got here. These cards are all in pretty good shape. And we'll start things off with New York Rangers winger Rod Gilbert. He had broken his ankle this season, but still managed to get quite a few points. He was part of the G.A.G Line in New York. Excellent player. I paid $8 for this card. It's in really good shape. Probably could get it cheaper on eBay, but it's really close. And on the back you can see where there's a postage stamp. Place Rod Gilbert stamp here. In 66 games, he had 28 goals, 49 assists for 77 points. The Rangers had a really good team in the early 70s, and Gilbert was a big part of that team. Played his entire career with the New York Rangers, was a 2-time All-Star, and is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So an excellent player. Next up, we have LA Kings winger Leon Rochefort. Paid $5 for this card. It's a little bit rougher on the edges, and plus he's not a big name. Rochefort had previously started in the NHL with the New York Rangers, then went to the Montreal Canadiens. Actually won a cup with Montreal in 1966, despite playing only 1 game in the regular season, 1 assist, and 4 games in the playoffs he had a goal and assist. So he got a Stanley Cup for that. He then was sent to the Philadelphia Flyers, then the LA Kings, which is this card here. But then in 71 he went back to Montreal, where he won a cup in 71. Played 57 games with the Habs and then 10 in the playoffs before going to the Detroit Red Wings, which I have a card there, the Atlanta Flames, and the Vancouver Canucks. Ended his career with the Tulsa Oilers of the Central Hockey League, where he won a championship there. So he'd been with a few teams and on a couple of good teams as well. So in 67 he was claimed in the expansion draft to the Philadelphia Flyers from Montreal. Was traded from Philly with Don Blackburn to the New York Rangers for Reg Fleming, and then traded from Montreal Canadiens to Buffalo Sabres for Kerry Ketter and Cash, and then traded from Detroit to Atlanta for Bill Hogaboom. Doesn't say how he got to LA. One of those things. Still, he played 617 games, scored 121 goals, was on 2 cup wins. So, just a dependable guy, probably your 3rd or 4th line guy. Oh, next up we got winger, Chicago Blackhawks, Terry Caffrey. Paid $8 for this card. It's a rookie card. I think I overpaid for this guy because he's not a household name. In 68-69 he wasn't even with the Blackhawks. He was with Senior A playing for the Ottawa Nationals. Played only like 5 games. Then in 69-70 he played for 6 games with Chicago before going to the minors. No points there. Went to the Minnesota North Stars in 70-71. 8 games, no points. Then finally he jumped to the WHA and won an Avco trophy with the New England Whalers. Then he started to play. He got 39 goals, 61 assists for 100 points in 74 games with them. So a big part of their win. Did not play in 74, but then played 3 more years in the W with the Whalers and the Calgary Cowboys. So 14 NHL games, 0 points, but his rookie card's worth $8. So I think I definitely overpaid for that. That's funny. He was traded from Chicago Blackhawks with Doug Moynes to Minnesota North Stars for Danny O'Shea. We got winger, California Seals, or the Oakland Seals, Bill Hick. That is an ugly jersey. The Oakland Seals original jerseys were not pretty. Not a pretty jersey. Bill Hick had been in the league for a while prior to this card. He won 2 Stanley Cups with the Montreal Canadiens. He gets a cup when he only played 1 game. He would have been in the team photo, but not actually on the cup. But the second time, he played 43 games, 13 points, and then 7 more in the playoffs. So he did win something. Stayed with Montreal all the way up until 65. Then went to the Rangers. And then finally the Oakland Seals. And ended his Pittsburgh Penguins. And ended his career with the then ended his career with the Alberta Oilers. I don't have his trade information in front of me. But it is a nice looking card, despite the ugly jersey. Keeping with the Oakland Seals, we have winger Gene Ubriaco. This is a rookie card, paid $7 for. Now this card's Ubriaco is interesting because I remember him more as a coach for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So this is his rookie card and his only card. So 2 guys, I got their rookie cards, and they only played 1 and done. Paid $7 for Ubriaco, and he hardly played 1 card. So he played for the Pittsburgh Penguins in 67-68. In 68-69, he gets traded to the Oakland Seals. And then in 69-70, he went from Oakland to Chicago. 177 NHL games, 39 goals for 74 points. As a coach, he coached a lot in the AHL, Eastern Hockey League, Central Hockey League, the International Hockey League. Spent only a year and a bit with the Pittsburgh Penguins as their coach. 106 games, he won 50 games, lost 47, and then tied 9. Back when ties were a thing. So he coached Mario Lemieux, but couldn't take them further. Round 2 in the playoffs, and then got fired after 24 games in the second season. I think Pittsburgh didn't really give him a chance. Poor guy. So that's how I remember Gene Ubriaco, just from coaching Pittsburgh. Defenseman, Detroit Red Wings, Matt Ravlich. Paid $5 for this card. I know nothing about this guy. Never heard of him at all. By this time, he already had a couple of 100 games under his belt. Started his career with the Boston Bruins, then went to the Chicago Blackhawks in the 60s. Detroit Red Wings in 69-70, but then got traded to the LA Kings that year. Played only 46 games for the Red Wings. Then he went back to Boston for 31 games. So, played 411 games, had 90 points. So in 1964, he was traded from Boston with Jerry Topanzini to Chicago for Murray Balfour, I've heard of, and Mike Draper. The name was claimed in an interleague draft by Detroit Red Wings from Chicago Blackhawks. So back then, they had an interleague draft where the bottom teams could take players from the top teams, like unprotected players. It kind of gave the image of the illusion of free agency when there wasn't. It was just a way for some player movement, but not have real player movement. No all-star players ever got taken in these drafts. Just the guys who might not even make the team. Then he was traded from Detroit Red Wings with Gary Monahan and Brian Gibbons to LA for Gary Croteau, Dale Rolfe, and Larry Johnston. Can't tell you who won that trade because none of those guys amounted to much. The New York Rangers center Orland Kurtenbach paid $5 for his card. He's played over 300 games before in the NHL. And I have his card when he was with the Vancouver Canucks. So he played for New York Rangers, the Boston Bruins, Toronto Maple Leafs, back to the Rangers, and then spent from 1970 to 74 with the Vancouver Canucks. Also coached the Vancouver Canucks in the 70s, but wasn't very good. Coached 80 games with Vancouver and only won 20 games. But he had been around for a while. Again, in 61, he was claimed in an interleague draft by Boston from New York. Traded from Boston with Andy Hebington and Pat Stapleton to Toronto Maple Leafs for Ron Stewart. I'm going to say Toronto won that deal because Stapleton was a pretty good defenseman. Claimed in the interleague draft by New York Rangers from Toronto Maple Leafs. Claimed an expansion draft by Vancouver from New York Rangers. So again, he wasn't exactly in high demand. You know, he played 639 games at 119 goals, 332 assists. So it wasn't bad. He's a third, fourth line guy. a guy you can count on to chip in. And definitely part of that, the idea of giving free agency when there was none. And last, we have winger for the New York Rangers, Dave Ballon. Paid $5 for this card. Never heard of this guy. A couple of guys here I never heard of. But this guy actually played for a lot of teams. He played for the New York Rangers he played for the New York Rangers from 1959 to 1963. Played for Montreal from 63 up to 67, like in this system. Won 2 Stanley Cups with the Habs. If you played with Montreal in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you were damn sure to win a cup. Went to Minnesota, then went back to the Rangers, then went to Vancouver. So I might have another one of his cards, not sure. He ended his career with Quebec Nordiques in 74. So I never heard of the guy, but he won some cups. Claimed an expansion draft by Minnesota from Montreal. So when Minnesota came in the league, he was one of their picks from Montreal. Then in 71, he was traded from New York with Wayne Connolly and Ron Stewart to Vancouver Canucks for Gary Doak and Jim Wist. I would say Vancouver won that deal, because Wayne Connolly, and Ron Stewart wouldn't be that bad. Jim Wist, I think, only played in the WHA. And Gary Doak, he was a defenseman who later went to Boston. But Ballon wasn't bad. 776 games, 414 points with 192 of them goals. And then had, in 78 playoff games, he had 14 goals, 21 assists for 35 points. So not bad at all. That's not too shabby. But there we have it. 8 cards from Fan of the Sport. I don't have a lot of these cards, so anything helps. I think I overpaid for these, but he doesn't charge me taxes on this, or he gives me a discount, so I'm not quite paying the card price. But the older you get for hockey cards, the more you're going to pay. That's the pure and simple of it. So all you hockey card fans, I hope you enjoyed this reveal. Hope you enjoy looking at the older cards as much as I do. I would like to go back and get the first O-PEECHEE set, which is the year before this. But they're even more expensive. Anyway, leave comments in the comment section, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, this has been Hockey Night in Belmont. I'm out of here.